gawa ng mga kamay sa mga tinig na nagkakandili.
Sa mga pusong gumagabay, sa mga kababaihan na nasa likod ng ating kaunlaran. Maraming salamat po. Saludo po kami sa inyo.
We are celebrating with you dito sa Radyo Agila.
Mga bagong kaalaman sa siyensiya at teknolohiya. Alamin sa programang Pinoy Scientist. Tuwing Linggo, alas 5 ng hapon hanggang alas 6 ng gabi. Pinoy Scientist. KBP Best Science and Technology Radio Program. Pinoy Scientist. Dito sa Radyo Agila.
Magandang hapon po, mga kabarangay. Ako si Dr. Custer Diocaris, ang inyong kabarangay Pinoy Scientist, at welcome po sa ikatlong nating episode ng Lakbay Kinabukasan. Ito po ang kauna-unahang programa sa radyo dito po sa Pilipinas, dedikado po sa futures thinking. At shoutout muna bago tayo magsimula, bago ko introduce ang ating co-host, shoutout muna kay Dr. JD Agapito, ang ating makatang siyentita na nakikinig po sa episode natin ngayon, at si Miss Lana Revista, co-founder ko po sa Goldex Ground Up, my startup company, at ang aking mga klase sa MBA program ng New Era University. Ngayon po ay pag-uusapan natin ang isang revolutionaryong ideya, ang pagtigil po ng pagtanda at ang posibilidad ng immortalidad. At kasama ko po ang aking co-host na si Professor Sherman Ortega, UNESCO Chair on Anticipatory Governance and Regenerative Cities. Magandang hapon, Professor Sherman.
Magandang hapon, Dr. Castor, at sa tagapakinig ng ating programa ngayon. At I think very interesting itong pag-uusapan natin.
Yes.
Very curious din na naman ako.
Ayan. Kasi nga, Professor Sherman, kung kaya natin pigilan ng pagtanda, well, syempre, marami tayong mga intervention dyan. Dapat ba natin gawin to? I mean, yung pagtanda na we can defy death. Nakikita naman po natin yung pangalan na nasa background ni Dr. Cordiero. At kung matagumpay po tayo, syempre, bilang futures thinker ay gusto natin malaman ano bang klaseng mundo ang ating haharapin. At kasama po natin ngayon si Dr. Jose Luis Cordiero. Isa po siyang eksperto ng transhumanism at may akda ng librong The Death of Death. La Muerte de la Muerte. Wow. Pag-usapan natin ang siyensya sa likod ng longevity, hamon ng teknolohiya, at mga etikal na dilema kasama nito. Welcome to Pinoy Scientist, Dr. Jose Luis Cordiero.
My pleasure to be with you to talk about the most important subject there is, which is the only one about life or death, really life or death.
Dr. Luis, how should we, or Dr. Cordiero, how should we address you during this informal conversation on national radio?
You can call me by my first name, Jose. Jose is good.
Okay. So, let's start. Professor Sherman, maybe you can throw the first question.
Yes, thank you very much, Castor. I've been having conversation on this with Dr. Jose Cordiero, who is a friend of mine, been a colleague for the Millennium Project in the last 3 years about, this death, as an idea. I would like to start with a very simple question, Jose, about, what is the central argument, about the book, The Death of Death?
Well, first of all, Sherman, a pleasure to be with you and with your colleagues in the Philippines. Indeed, we have been working together with the Millennium Project on many futuristic areas, and my focus right now is longevity, life extension. And the reason why I'm so enthusiastic about this is that about a decade ago, it was discovered that aging can be reversed. The Nobel Prize in Medicine of the year 2012 a Japanese scientist, Shinya Yamanaka, he proved scientifically that you can change the biological age of the cells. So he took old cells and he made them young. That is absolutely revolutionary. And since that moment, there is a lot of investment, a lot of money, a lot of scientists, a lot of research on this area. So much that in the next 20 years, this will be the biggest industry in the world, the
Wow.
biggest thing in the world, because all of us are aging, and aging is not good. But the good news is that now we know that it is possible to reverse aging.
Okay, you mentioned about Dr. Shinya. I actually applied as his postdoc, but he didn't get me. He sent a message. There's a long queue of people in the field who's applying, so I wasn't able to get it. But I was also in the field of aging and immortality as part of my doctoral dissertation. We're working on molecular chaperones. So in your book, you mentioned that aging is a curable disease. Is that correct? So how
Yes,
close are we to that reality?
well, I actually explain in the book what some of my colleagues working on this, not only Shinya Yamanaka, obviously he doesn't give dates, but my other friend from Google, Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil is director of engineering and especially artificial intelligence at Google. And he talks that there will be 2 days, two very important times, 2030 and 2045. In 2030, we would pass what is called the Alan Turing test in terms of artificial intelligence, that you will not know anymore if you are talking to a human or to an artificial intelligence, but also we will reach what is called longevity escape velocity. Longevity escape velocity is the idea that by 2030, for every year we survive, we gain 1 extra year because life expectancy keeps on increasing. And so we earn 1 year per year, and therefore we will be able to live long enough to live forever. But aging, still aging, we will be living longer but aging until 2045. In 2045, according to my friend from Google and founder of Singularity University, Ray Kurzweil, he says that we will have biological rejuvenation. So it doesn't matter how old we are by 2045 because we will be able to rejuvenate people by 2045. And again, this was started scientifically by Dr. Shinya Yamanaka in Japan. Actually, I visited him before he got the Nobel Prize. In 2008, I was living in Tokyo, and he was already famous because his discovery was from year 2006. And so he became very famous, and he got the Nobel Prize very quickly. He got the Nobel Prize in 2012. And he's still very young. He's younger than me, in fact. And he got the Nobel Prize in 2012 for this incredible achievement that most people don't know. If you talk to the average person, people don't know that aging can be reversed and that we are going to cure aging and that we are very close. And I repeat, between 2030 to 2045, we expect to be able to cure aging and to live indefinitely forever and indefinitely young, not indefinitely old, because no one wants to be old forever. But we can be young and younger forever.
Yeah, two things. As you know, we had a conversation about this during the Dubai Future Forum, I think 2 years ago, Jose, and you told me that who's going to make this possible? What kind of a technological advancement that will enable us to reverse aging and eventually seeing a future wherein death becomes optional? And then you said that it won't be doctors, but it will be engineers. Now, my question is, what technological advancement are we talking about here? Like, what would enable us, as human beings, right, to reverse aging and making that optional?
Yes. Medical doctors are mostly practitioners. They are not into research. So Shinya Yamanaka, who got the Nobel Prize in medicine or physiology, he's not a doctor. He's a biologist. And what he did is really bioengineering. So it is the mix of biology and engineering. I am an engineer, so I like engineers also for solving problems. And what is interesting is that all the big IT, information technology, engineering companies are moving into longevity. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, he created a company where he invested another billionaires, $3 billion to rejuvenate. This company is called Altos Labs. Altos because it was founded in Los Altos in California. But not only Amazon, also Google. The Google guys, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, both engineers. Also, they founded a company for rejuvenation called Calico, California Life Company. And they also invested $3 billion. And the same is happening with all the other companies. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, also he's donating all his fortune to his foundation, the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation. His wife, Priscilla Chan, is a medical doctor who studied biology at Harvard, where they met, and they are donating all the money to their foundation to cure all diseases, including aging. In fact, they said something really beautiful. When their first daughter was born about a decade ago, they said that their daughter, whose name is Max, will not die. Imagine, they said that she will not die of aging. She might die of other things like a broken heart, or an accident, but she will not die of aging because we will have cured aging in the next a few decades. So anyway, all these big information technology companies are investing into health and into longevity. Also, Apple, the new CEO, Cook, Thomas Cook, I think, he said that Apple will be remembered, but what they will do now on health and longevity. So even Apple is moving into health. So we have all of the big companies, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, IBM, Microsoft. This is moving very fast. And I'll tell you also something really interesting. The Nobel Prize last year in 2024 in chemistry was to an engineer who developed a system to sequence proteins, to know how the proteins are formed. This would have taken centuries for humans, centuries. But a program that they created called AlphaFold, which is part of Google DeepMind, solved all the proteins problems, which is millions and millions of proteins in very quickly. So the Nobel Prize in chemistry in 2024 was given to one engineer from Google that is working now with proteins. So it's really interesting. And my forecast, and also talking with my friend Ray Kurzweil, we believe that in 10 years, an artificial intelligence will win the Nobel Prize. Right now, artificial intelligence got 2 Nobel Prizes last year, physics and chemistry, but it was actually scientists who used artificial intelligence. What will happen in 10 years is that an artificial intelligence itself will get the Nobel Prize. And this is a big change of paradigm. AI actually is what will help us also with immortality, because we cannot understand the human genome. It's very big. It's 3 gigabytes of data, the human genome. So we cannot process that. But for artificial intelligence, it's very easy. It's very easy. It's big data and artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is fundamental to understand biology also.
And not to mention, Dr. Jose, last year's Nobel Prize winner in physiology is in C. elegans, microRNA. And if you connect Shinya Yamanaka's cellular reprogramming technology, it's also about epigenetic changes. Changing because SOX and the three other factors, they are changing the epigenetic landscape by wiping out, because when we grow old, there are marks on the genome. So what he essentially did in reprogramming is to wipe away those marks as if you're cleaning a whiteboard. So we are seeing a trend also in
Yes,
science towards immortality.
absolutely. And this is so important what you are saying, because before we talked about genetics, only genetics. Now we talk about epigenetics. Epigenetics because the genome is the same, but the epigenome is not the same. The genome does not change throughout life, but some genes are on or off, and that changes with time. And there are some genes that you can turn on or off to be older. I don't recommend that, but you can also move those genes to become younger, which is what I recommend. Shinya Yamanaka got the Nobel Prize in 2012. In 2020, another friend from Harvard who did his postdoc at MIT, which is my alma mater, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, David Sinclair and his team at Harvard, they were able to rejuvenate an organ. So we pass from cells to organs. And what David Sinclair's team at Harvard did was to rejuvenate the eyes of blind mice, mice that were about 80 years old, human years equivalent,
Oh.
and they were blind already. Through the gene therapy based on Shinya Yamanaka, with only 3 genes, they gave their sight back to the mice. The eyes turned from 80 years to 20 years. This is absolutely magical. And this is what you were saying. This is epigenetics, changing just the genes, not changing the genome, changing some of the genes in the genome on or off. And so this is so incredible also. I just read that some other scientists are working on changing types of cells, from neurons to skin cells, or to cardiac cells, or to muscle cells. This is actually now going to be very simple. Thanks to artificial intelligence as well, we are identifying which genes to turn on or off to have a neuron or a muscle or a heart cell, because the genome is the same. And then we just need to change a few genes to have different types of cells. This sounds like science fiction, but it is science, right? Reality. And artificial intelligence is helping a lot with that.
Yeah,
Okay,
and there are a lot.
Sherman, maybe we can
Sure.
have a break. It's
Sure.
ang oras po natin ngayon ay 15 minuto makalipas sa 5 ng hapon, Philippine Standard Time. Magbabalik po ang Pinoy Scientist. Nakita nyo, napakinggan nyo po ang mga teknolohiya na talagang gumagalaw para maging realidad ang let's say, paghinto o pag-reverse ng aging process. Magbabalik po ang Pinoy Scientist na pag-usapan natin mamaya. Perhaps some philosophical and ethical consideration ng proseso na ito. Huwag po kayong alis.
EBC, Eagle Broadcasting Corporation. Ito ang Radyo Agila.
Ang oras na ito ay hatid sa inyo ng Cable Link, your link to a world-class entertainment.
This time check is brought to you by BioQuick, high-quality products for hospitals and labs with 19 years of dedicated service to the community. They have become your trusted partner for all things medical.
Tayo na sa EO. Tayo'y magpatingin. Tayo na sa EO. Sila'y eksperto at magagaling. Tayo na sa EO. Inyong mata ang mahalin. EO Executive Optical. Ang practical. EO Executive Optical. Ito'y practical.
This news is brought to you by BioQuick, high-quality products for hospitals and labs with 19 years of dedicated service to the community. They have become your trusted partner for all things medical.
Babalik po ang Pinoy Scientist. Ako po si Dr. Paso. Kasama ko po ngayon si Professor Sherman Ortega, ang ating futurist, at si Dr. Jose. Sherman, you were asking a question before we left.
Yes, yes. There's been a lot of optimism about, artificial intelligence, being integrated in everything that we do, particularly science and technology and health. In fact, several months ago, the U.S. government, through SoftBank, is about to invest like $500 billion, right? To amplify action to artificial intelligence in the health sector in partnership with OpenAI and Oracle as well. But, just two or probably like three interesting questions, Jose. As far as your experience is concerned, when you've been communicating this idea around the world, how have you been addressing this skepticism about reversing aging and or achieving this biological, immortality? That's one, the skepticism around it. Second is, the religious institution. How are they reacting to it? And the third one is, if we succeed, let's just say in the next 30 to 50 years, about these life extension technologies, is it just for the wealthy? Will this be accessible to everyone?
Wow, those are difficult questions. So let's try to answer them quickly, but also all the answers are in the book, The Death of Death. So the solution is to read The Death of Death to have those answers. Also, the book is now in 15 languages. 15 languages in Spanish, original one, La Muerte de la Muerte, then in English, The Death of Death. Now it's in Chinese and in many more languages. So I would like to publish it in Tagalog. So if we can publish in the Philippines, I would be very honored to go and to present my book in the Philippines, in Manila, and in other places. So now let's talk about the skepticism. The book actually has two parts. The first part is the scientific possibility of immortality and its moral defense. So I do cover the science and the ethical issues that you are also asking about. Concerning the science and the skepticism, I begin talking about the Nobel Prize in Medicine 2012, Shinya Yamanaka. He discovered that aging can be reversed. It can also be accelerated. It can be modified. It is flexible. Aging is flexible. And all cells are flexible. As I said, you can change a neuron into a skin cell or into heart cell. So we are very flexible. We can be flexibly young, flexibly old, flexibly more intelligent, and so on and so forth. The other thing I explained is that we know for even longer that immortality already exists in biology. We have immortal cells, which are the germ cells. The reproductive cells that we have, they do not age. These germ cells that we have, you have, Sherman, I have, all of us have germ cells for reproduction. They do not age, and they are called in biology, biologically immortal. That doesn't mean that they don't die, because when the body dies, these cells that don't age, they also die, but they do not age. They do not age. So this has been discovered relatively also in the last few decades, but we also discovered other cells that don't age. And those are bad. Cancer. Cancer cells are mutations that stop aging. So cancer cells have to be killed because they don't die. They don't age. They keep on growing and reproducing. And we know this since 1951 with a patient called Henrietta Lacks, who was born in 1920 and died at 1951. She lived 31 years. And the doctors examined her tumor, her cancer, and the tumor is alive today. It's alive. And even though it's over 100 years old, it keeps on reproducing like a teenager. And that is how we also discovered that cancer cells discover immortality. And cancer cells did not go to university. Cancer cells didn't pay millions talking about how much it costs. It will cost nothing because cancer cells discover immortality for free and without education. So now we are understanding what cancer does. And we are very close. We are very close to cure cancer. I am convinced that in 5 to 10 years, we are going to cure most cancers. We are discovering the biological basis of cancer and the mutations that create cancer because cancer cells are mutant cells that stop aging. So we are discovering that, how stopping aging can be achieved, how cancer does it, or how the good cells, germ cells, also don't age. Even more important, we have discovered that there are already also immortal organisms. There are some small organisms like the immortal jellyfish. It's called immortal because it doesn't age. Of course, again, it can die. If a rock or if a piano falls off my head, I die. And the immortal jellyfish also would die, but it doesn't age, which is important. It does not age. So some jellyfish don't age, some hydras don't age, and even very interestingly, lobsters. Lobsters do not show signs of aging. They just keep on growing forever, and that is the problem. At some point, someone eats the lobster because the lobster do not show any signs of age, and they can have little lobsters. They are in sexual activity over 100 years. So many things are being discovered about the biology of aging. And another example about mammals. We are mammals, and we have mammals that live only 2 years. Some small shrew, like mice, of 2 years. And then we have whales. We have whales of 2 centuries, 200 years. And we are mammals. Mammals, we share 90% of the genome, at least. And we have mammals from 2 years to 200 years. So why? Why? And now we are discovering it with big data, with artificial intelligence. We are discovering that. Also, if we go outside mammals, we have animals that live 1 day. There are some insects that live 1 day. And there are sharks. The Greenland shark lives 500 years, 5 centuries. Incredible. And if we go into trees, there are trees of thousands and thousands of years. The famous Buddha tree, where Buddha was illuminated in India, the son of that tree is alive, and it is over 2,000 years old. And there are trees in California of 5,000 years of age, and other trees in other places 10,000 years. So anyway, the point is that biology can make us live 1 day, like some insects, or thousands of years, like some trees. So this is to show how science is opening the doors and we can conquer this skepticism. About religion. I think religion should be the biggest supporter of this because all religions talk about immortality. So if we can have immortality here, let's try it here. That doesn't mean that it cannot be another immortality somewhere else and sometime later. But if we can begin with immortality here, let's give it a go as well. So I think religion is in favor in a way of immortality. Even in the Bible, it says in Corinthians, it says that the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. The last enemy. So death is the enemy of humanity, and even according to the Bible, it will be destroyed. So, but there are different religions. Also, Buddhism. There is a more of an immortalist view in Buddhism as well. But all religions, again, they should be friends of immortality. And the cost. It's going to be free. And this is what I explained in chapter 5 of my book. How much does it cost? Zero. And let me explain why. I can explain to you like in 5 ways, but let me give you 2 quick examples. First of all, as I mentioned, cancer discovered immortality, and it didn't pay anything. It didn't pay anything at this, and it became immortal. But also, if we look at us chemically, we are, as you probably know, 65% water. We are 65% water, and we are not, sophisticated mineral water, Perrier water, or Evian water. We are tap water, 65%. And the other 35% is the most common, abundant, and cheap elements in the planet. Besides the hydrogen and the oxygen, we are carbon based. There is plenty of carbon. And then we have some nitrogen, some calcium, some potassium. So we are very cheap. I like to say that we human beings, we are dirty water bags. Dirty water bags. We don't cost chemically $100. We do not cost, again, all of us, our elements, $100. And now that we are moving into nanotechnology and controlling matter atom by atom, something that costs $100 will be able to be repaired very cheaply because we are cheap, so we will be repaired cheaply. But also let me give you still another argument that people will understand, which is the recent COVID pandemic. COVID-19 was a very small pandemic in historic terms. It really a tiny pandemic. The bubonic plague, the death plague in Europe killed 1 out of every 3 people. 1 out of every 3 humans died. 33% of the population of Europe died. That was a big, big pandemic. COVID, on the other hand, has killed 0.00 whatever. It's nothing compared to the Black Death or to the Spanish flu also. The Spanish flu 100 years ago, which was not Spanish and it was not the flu, it killed the equivalent of 200 million people today. 200 million people today. That was a big pandemic. Or even AIDS. AIDS has killed over 40 million humans, 40 million people. That is also a big pandemic. How many people died because of COVID? Well, we don't know for sure. Some estimates go between 10 million, others 20 million, maybe 25 million. But also the number one risk factor was your age. The older you were, the highest the probability of dying. So aging was the problem also with COVID. But regardless of the cost or whatever, COVID, historically, a small pandemic paralyzed the whole planet for 2 years, the whole planet. And the vaccines were developed in record time. It was incredibly fast. Normally, vaccines take 10 years, and these COVID vaccines were done in less than 1 year, less than 1 year. And how much did they cost to the public? Zero, zero, zero to the public. Okay, of course, they cost billions, maybe even trillions to develop. And that was paid by governments, pharmaceutical companies, foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But to the common person, it was free. Why did it have to be free? Because if it were not free, there could have been a revolution. Even in rich countries, even in rich countries, it was free. In Europe, it was free. In Japan, it was free. In the USA, it was free. And people could have paid. People could have paid $100 or $1,000, but it was free. Anyway, the cost of the vaccine at the end varied between the cheapest ones, $2, and the most expensive ones, $20. So you see, it is cheap. And it had to be free. I repeat, it had to be free because there could have been revolutions otherwise. Governments would have not supported poor people not having the vaccine. The governments would have been overthrown quickly. And this, I repeat, is for a tiny pandemic, for a small pandemic. When we develop the cure of aging before 2045, that is really big, really big. Forget about COVID, which was small, because we are all aging. And once we develop the cure for aging, it will be distributed free. It will be part of the social security systems. It will be part of the health systems in the different countries. And again, remember, it will be free because politically it has to be free. Otherwise, there will be revolutions. And also, because scientifically it will be cheap. Once it is developed, it will be $2 or like the COVID vaccines or $20 to develop. So for the public, even though most people could pay $2 or even $20, it will be free. So for everybody.
Luis, Dr. Jose, I'll be 72 in 2045. Do I have hope?
Of course.
72, okay, I'll be 72. So, will I escape the longevity velocity at that age?
Well, that's a very good question. And let me tell you, my friend Ray Kurzweil, who is the
Okay.
popularizer of the singularity, he just turned 77,
Mm-hmm.
and he plans uh, to live forever. I mean, not to die, and to be younger again, because he says that in the next few years we will reach longevity escape velocity, hopefully by 2030. So
Oh,
even
okay.
though he will be over 80 years in 2030, he will be getting 1 year per year, 1 year per year, and then we will rejuvenate him, you, and me by 2045.
I
Yeah,
just
Jose,
want to look young. Okay, go ahead, Sherman.
yeah. You know what? If this actually occur, like that would be great. It will be revolutionary, right? I share that optimism,
Mm-hmm.
Jose. But my question is, like, in your study, what's the biggest obstacle to this vision?
Well, actually, that people don't know about this and don't believe in this. That is why I explained about cancer. We know since 1951, that's a long, long time ago. That is over 70 years ago, that cancer discovered immortality for free. And if you ask people, how many people know that cancer is immortal? People don't know it. People don't know that cancer discovered immortality. If also you ask people if they know that there is a Nobel Prize in medicine that discovered that aging can be reversed, people don't know it. People don't know it. I mean, this is horrible. There is so much ignorance in the biggest question of humanity because immortality has been the biggest dream of humanity since the very beginning of history. In fact, history begins with writing, and the first book ever written is the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia. And Gilgamesh was a king who was looking for immortality. This book was written almost 5,000 years ago, and it was about immortality. The second oldest book, which is from Egypt, the Book of the Dead, is also about immortality. But obviously, the Mesopotamians and the Egyptians didn't have the technology that we have today. So we can reach immortality through biological rejuvenation. But the biggest obstacle is that people don't know that this is possible. And people think if it is possible, it will be impossible to pay for. And again, no, it is possible and it will be for free. And that is why I want to accelerate this, and I want to get my book in Tagalog, so that people understand this is serious, this is real, and that also the Filipinos will be able to take advantage of this. Because my book is a bestseller in China, Japan,
Wow.
Korea, soon in India. It's coming in the three major Indian languages: in Hindi, Bengali, Gujarati, and more. So it has to be also in Tagalog. I don't want Filipinos to die while the Chinese don't die and the Indians don't die.
Okay, where we Dr. Jose, Philippines population is now 115 million. So if Filipinos stop dying in 2030, how would you think society should adjust?
Yeah, actually, this is another big concern about population and resources, but this has been a concern always, always,
Mhm.
even in the Bible, where there is talk about the apocalypse, that there were many people and that there were diseases and that there were no resources, thousands of years ago, the apocalypse. 230 years ago, a British economist, Malthus said that it was the end of times because there were too many people and there were not enough resources. And he wrote that when London had 1 million people and England had 10 million people. Imagine, and he said it was the end. It was the end. Today, London has 12 million people. London alone. So London has more people than England at the time of Malthus. And of course, it was the end of time at the time of Malthus because there was no technology. There was not even agricultural technology. They still used cows. They used cows for farming. But then the Industrial Revolution began, and that is what made humanity advance. Also, we have advanced so much in the last 2 centuries because we have more people, and people are intelligent. We have brains. It is true that we have a mouth to eat and we have an ass to excrete and destroy, but we have the brain. The brain is the most complex structure in the known universe. The most complex structure is here. Even though we have a mouth and an ass, we have a brain, and the brain solves problems. If we have a problem, we use the brain with a little bit of food, of course, but we use the brain. So, I live now in Spain. In Spain, actually, the population of Spain has been declining for 20 years because people, when societies get wealthier, they stop having children. Also because they live longer and they are younger, so they worry more about them than about having future children. Anyway, so now the population of Spain and all of Europe is compensated because of immigration. Immigration also from the Philippines and many other countries is what is sustaining the population of Europe because otherwise it is declining. The same also in the USA and Canada and Australia, which are countries of immigrants, but not so in China, Korea, Japan, or Russia. There is very little immigration in those countries, and the population is declining. The worst case actually is Japan. Japan has been losing population for 15 years also. And it now is going to accelerate. It's going to accelerate the decline because people are much older and there are no children. The demographic pyramid that normally would be like lots of children and very few old people at the top now is the opposite. No children and very many old people. So the Japanese are dying now and they have no children. And the same in China. China is horrible. China will lose 700 million people by the end of this century if nothing changes. 700 million Chinese will disappear. Imagine the population will go down by half in China. So again, this will not happen because we will cure aging, the population will stabilize, and we will have more technology to feed all those people. Better technology, nanotechnology, robotics will help us to grow food very cheaply in an advanced way and with no pollution.
Wow, that's a pretty interesting assessment, really. Like, some trends there, and what you've just shared with us is it's becoming some sort of an existential issue, right? Like this that population thing, if the trend continues in the next 100 years, and of course, that can be some sort of justification, to some sort of push legitimization, for the governments, the state in particular, to support and fund this types of project. But my question now is that, do you see the state or the government regulating as well, life extension technologies, or, immortality stuff?
Well,
How do you
talking
find the
about
government? Like, would you see regulations in the future?
Well, there will be governments and there will be regulations, of course, but I think times change and regulations change. But talking about governments, it was the Chinese government that published my book in China. So I'm very happy that it was the China government publishing my book, because it is a big crisis. The population will go by half. And Japan, I have seen some forecasts which are so horrible that in 2 centuries there will be no Japanese in 2 centuries. So now the Filipinos can take another island, can go to Honshu and Hokkaido, or at least Okinawa, which is very nice weather. Honshu is kind of bad weather, and Hokkaido even worse. I lived 3 years in Japan, so I love Japan, but the crisis is so bad that the government has been closing down all the kindergartens. All the kindergartens are disappearing in Japan. And they are also combining all the public universities. Now there will be only one public university per city because there are no students. So really horrible situation. There will be no Japanese in 2 centuries if the trend continues, but it will change. And that is why Shinya Yamanaka was working on rejuvenation and he got the Nobel Prize. And now the Japanese are advancing on rejuvenating other organs. The Japanese are working now on rejuvenation of eyes on monkeys, and hopefully in 2 years in humans. And also they are working on rejuvenating livers, kidneys, hearts, lungs. These go step by step. So it will take 5, 10, 20 years. But I'm pretty convinced this will happen. It's just a matter of time until we understand better how these mechanisms work, how the immortal cells become immortal, how the small immortal organisms become immortal. And again, artificial intelligence is a key component in this because it can get all this data together, analyze it, and understand it very fast.
I completely agree with you. In fact, Dr. Jose, we're doing experiments in our lab. We're regenerating kidneys, so we're doing organ decellularization work in our institute right now, and I have 3 patents on organ decellularization. Hopefully, that will create personalized organs maybe in the next 10 years or 15 years if we get full support with our research. But in any case, of course, there will be changes. You said earlier that kindergartens closed in Japan. What other industries do you think would be most affected by longevity breakthroughs? Maybe you can suggest potential business models and industries that will emerge.
Absolutely. Everything will change. Everything. And this has been the biggest dream of humanity since the beginning of history. And now we are very close to making it a reality. So some industries will evolve, and some will change dramatically. For example, something that will continue because we need to reinvent ourselves continuously is education. We need to educate ourselves every 10 years, every 20 years, because things keep on moving, keep on advancing. So we need to educate ourselves all the time. Also, the health sector is very important and it will continue to be very important because we will want to stay young and also to remain young forever, indefinitely. So these two big sectors to me are key. Then obviously all the manufacturing will evolve because there will be robots. Robots will be producing most manufacturing, also producing food. And another interesting thing, in 10 years, we will have colonies, space colonies, um, in the moon and on planet Mars. This will also help us to experiment with different types of governments. Sherman, you were asking about governments. We will have new types of governments in space. The moon will have its own government. Mars will have its own government. We will experiment new things. So even governments will change. Everything will change, even marriage. Marriage will change because today we say, until death do us apart. But if you don't die, I don't know if you will want to be married to the same person for
Oh,
a
you're so
thousand years.
bad. Okay. You're so bad. That's mean.
Well, but it's to think about it. It's to think about it.
Just kidding.
Yes.
Sure, man.
Yeah, yeah. Just would like to go back, to the premise about the concept of aging, really, because you mentioned that it is a disease, right? Like that's my question, Jose, right? Like if you come to think about it, the last what you mentioned, like 5,000, 7,000, or 20,000 years, it has been natural and organic, right, in the life cycle of human beings, in any beings for that matter, like that. We are born, we mature, and then we die, right? Like, and then how come, this the context, the way they frame it is that, you know, aging is a disease. Like, please enlighten me about that.
Yes. Two very good points. Number one, aging is natural. You are correct. Aging is natural, but natural things are not necessarily good. For example, Alzheimer's is very natural. And if you live 80, 90, 100, you will get Alzheimer's at some point. Cancer is natural. Cancer is natural. In fact, all of us get cancer since we are born. We get cancer continuously, but our body is very strong when we are children, teenagers, or when we are in our 20s. So our body destroys the cancer cells. But when we are in our 40s, 50s, our body becomes weaker and we cannot kill the cancer that we have since we are born. But anyway, cancer is natural and we want to eliminate it. Heart attacks. Heart attacks are very natural, but we want to eliminate it. So aging is also natural and we want to cure it, like cancer, Alzheimer's, and so on and so forth. Also, as I mentioned, the number one risk factor for COVID was your age. But it's the same with all other chronic diseases. The number one risk factor for cancer is age. For Alzheimer's is age. For heart attacks is age. For Parkinson's, for any chronic condition, the number one risk factor is your age. So now we are beginning to say that we don't really need to cure cancer. We don't need to cure Alzheimer's. What we need to cure is aging, because if you stay at a biological age of 20 indefinitely, forget about Alzheimer's, forget about cancer, forget about Parkinson's. You will not develop those diseases if you are strong at age 20, which is the goal. So aging is the mother of chronic diseases, is the mother. So let's not cure just the children. We need to cure the mother of all diseases, which is aging itself.
One quick question, Custer. So, do we expect new types of diseases if we could live forever young?
Yes, there will probably be new diseases and there will be new viruses and new bacteria. And once we go to Mars, well, we might get a Martian disease. So, yes, but we will cure those diseases like we're doing now. So, I'm not afraid about that. We have our brains. Our brains are to solve now better with artificial intelligence.
That's quite correct, Dr. Jose, because when they analyze the brains of centenarians that died or super centenarians, they found out that they are resistant to cancer, they're resistant to heart attacks, but they died of a disease called the transthyretin amyloidism, which is quite rare. And we expect that with longevity comes new sets of diseases because somehow nature will summon its forces to challenge the new norm. In any case, we only have 6 more minutes left, and maybe there are some policies you think, Doctor, said that might change. Well, I was thinking of, on top of mind, pension, retirement. If because the concept of retirement was created during the Industrial Revolution when the typical age of the average age or of death is before 45 years old, or I think 50 years old. Now that the
Yes.
average lifespan has expanded, what do you think would be the top three policies that will be changed for the future, or should governments look into?
Well, of course, pensions will disappear because we will not be old. We will be young and we will be energetic, and we will have robots to work the economy. So, also, it's not that we have to be working like animals all the time. No. Technology will be doing the jobs, the work, most of the work. So, but we need to transform many things in society, of course. So, the recycling of people, learning new things, both at the work front and at the educational front. These are two different areas which are fundamental. Also, I think when we live longer and longer, we are going to be more peaceful and cleaner because we are going to be here to suffer if we have wars, and we are going to be here to suffer if we have a dirty environment. So there will be a big change in our minds, a change of paradigm also because we are going to go to Mars. When we look at our tiny planet Earth from Mars, we will see there are no borders, no frontiers, and humanity is only one, and we only have one enemy, and that is aging and death. That is the common enemy of humanity. The enemy is not the Russians, the Chinese, the Americans, the Israelis, the Arabs. No, the Russian, the enemy, the real enemy is aging and death. So that is what we need to cure. This will make us more peaceful and cleaner, because we are going to be here to enjoy the future or suffer the future. Because I like to say we are between the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation. So where do you want to be?
Yes, one question. Perhaps Jose can respond to this in 1 minute. Like for example, if we get to resolve, aging and death, assuming that we're successful in the next 100 years, but then I also see the emergence of a new type of death, which is, of course, like humorously, I would say, death by boredom, right? Like loneliness, and then you try to link that with the issue of suicide, right? So, what do you say about that, Jose?
Well, that's a good point. Death will always be around. It is not that you cannot die. People will keep on dying because of accidents, suicides, and homicides. So death will always be around. But if we stay young and healthy, and if we are more peaceful, and if we are cleaner, to put it that way, um, we are not, we will not want to die. If you are young and energetic, imagine all the things that you can do. I could learn Tagalog, for example, if I had more time. I would visit again the Philippines. I was only once in the Philippines 30 years ago, and I know now it's totally different, totally different. So I want to go back, and I want to go to the moon. I want to go to planet Mars. I went to many other places. How can you get bored? The universe is infinite, infinite universe. So we have all the time to learn about this beautiful infinite universe. And remember, in the next 20 years, in the next 2 decades, we are going to see more advances that in the last 2,000 years, that in the last 2 millennia, so we have seen nothing yet.
So it's not just a brave new world, it's a wonderful, optimistic, beautiful world that we are facing. So thank you very much, Dr. Jose, for gracing the Pinoy Scientist and sharing your insights to the Filipinos. So mga kabarangay, napakalinaw po ang ating natutunan ngayong araw. Ang pagtanda po ay hindi isang simpleng natural na proseso, kundi ito po'y problemang pag-agham na may solusyon. Ngunit, habang tinutulak po natin ang agham, mahalagang pag-isipan natin paano natin gagamitin ang ating mahabang buhay para hindi tayo mabore, sabi nga ni Sherman. So maraming salamat Dr. Jose sa iyong pananaw at sa mga tagapakinig. Tandaan, ang hinaharap po ay hindi lamang bagay na hinihintay natin, ito po isang bagay na binubuo. Isa po itong hakbang. Ako po si Dr. Coster at kasama ko po si Professor Sherman Ortega. Ito po ang Lakbay Kinabukasan. Magkita-kita naman po tayo sa susunod na linggo dito na po sa programa na kung saan ang siyensya ay buhay. Maraming salamat po. Thank you, Dr. Se.
Thank you,
Live
sir.
long and
Thank you.
prosper.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Live long and prosper.
Bye.
Bye.